think being a big fish in a small pond is obviously a better choice. Who cares about small fish in a big pond? When you're talking about big fish in a small pond, you're talking about one industry that's not as big. But being that big fish means that you get a larger share of that industry. It's stable, you won't face many competitors at all because you're the big fish. And you get that guaranteed income from being the monopoly in the situation. You can dominate the pond. You can use tactics like vertical integration, horizontal integration, absolutely destroy your opponents, become the new Rockefeller. If you're, on the other hand, if you're a small fish in a big pond, you don't get that. You have to go and fight for those little scraps that those bigger fish will be handing down to you. You will fight for your survival and you will not succeed at all. That is why it's better to be a big fish. Stability, ultra dominance in the market. And you look cooler.
Okay, I completely disagree with this incredibly greedy ideal that Michelle is spewing out right now. In my personal belief, the diversity of a big pond is so incredibly important because you know what these big industries will do? What do? How do they get so big? They buy smaller companies. And guess what? These smaller companies can completely change the market. For example, Scrub Daddy. Do you remember how Scrub Daddy came to market? It was a tiny little industry that went onto Shark Tank and became huge. It became the big fish. And the big fish started getting copies, and these copies started altering on the ideas. These smaller fishes that help change the idea of the entire market are so incredibly important to the big pond. Think of it. Without these smaller companies, or smaller fish, then we wouldn't even have some of these big companies' ideas. A lot of these big companies steal ideas from the small fish. Can you imagine? This is why it's better to be the smaller fish in a bigger pond.
Right, first of all, that idea was completely incorrect for multiple reasons. So you said first off saying that smaller fish become big fish. So how is a smaller fish better than a big fish if they're turning into a bigger fish? That makes absolutely no sense. Second, big fish change small fish into bigger ones. By buying the smaller fish and creating them into a bigger fish, they're actually making the market much better. This increases all types of money inflow, and like Michelle said, it completely changes everything. Big fish get all the dominance because they're changing all these smaller fish. Smaller fish mean nothing in this after the big fish change everything. Simply, you're completely incorrect. Big fish always are better.
Alright. What you just said was smaller fish are irrelevant because bigger fish just take smaller fish and become big. But smaller fish must have started out somewhere, right? Smaller fish started out smaller. And when they find a good idea, it's not the bigger fish that just buy them out. It's the smaller fish that realize that they have this idea and then they go someplace with it. Bigger fish just use everything that they have. They just have money. They just are able to reproduce products that they already found on the shelves. But smaller fish came up with the idea. That's how they're able to grow a lot more. You big fish just stay where you are all the time. You never change.
I think we should go back to the root of this question. Would you rather be a big fish or a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? Well, big fish, we get the food. We survive. We guard the smaller fish from the big fish predators, from those sharks, from those underwater eels. Guess what? We actually do grow. We actually do change. That's how we get to be the big fish. We develop as changes within the market, changes within the demand of the consumers. We grow and we change, and that's how we survive. That's how we become the big fish. What if it's not the pond that's small? What if it's small in comparison to us, the big fish? Those who are leaders within the company. We can look at maybe a big scale company, a big company versus a small company. But what about within a corporation, within an organization? You have the big fish who is at the top of the chain, at the top of the food chain, and they are the ones influencing others, and they can use that power for good. They can use that to teach people to do their work better, to be more knowledgeable. They can use that big fish superiority for smaller fish benefits. You know, we talk about they can buy those companies. What about they do good for those companies and they do good for those consumers who want those products and services better and more developed.
I disagree with you because first of all, if you're like buying our companies and our products and using it as yours, then like how is it fair to us first of all? And you big fish do not have any creativity at all because you steal ideas from us and do not make your own ideas. You just like develop which our ideas have and mostly do not even give us the credit, which is unfair to us. And the ponds, like, it's better to be a smaller fish in a bigger pond because you have more space to improve. Like the more computers, you have more like ideas on like how to be better than them, how to be like more dominant, and how to like get bigger. It helps you like really like try to get bigger, and it improves your company. That's why I think it's better being the smaller fish than the bigger pond.